The Gundam card game is settling into just over 9 months since players got their hands on cards. Almost 3 if you want to disregard the beta release of the game. In that time, we've had locals, new type challenges, and numerous regionals, and I think it's time that we face the fact. Gundam is not a good best of one game. Look, I swear I'm not just being a TCG boomer yelling at the clouds. Okay, well, I am, but not about this specifically. But more so, have formulated this opinion after the negative play experiences I've had with this game over the course of nearly a year. I think there are card games where best of one can make sense, even within Bandai's own catalog. However, due to the specific choices made with the design of the Gundam card game and its gameplay, I believe the game results swing on the basis of RNG more than they should, and the frustrations around that are compounded in a best of one environment. Before I dive in, if you like Gundam card game videos and want to see more from me, subscribe button down there so you don't miss the next one. The goal of switching to best of 3 would be to flatten those RNG spikes and allow for more determinative gameplay and results. I want to touch on a few pillars that reinforce where the feels bads of the game are coming from, but I think the biggest culprit, and arguably the most solvable, is... At its core, Gundam is a game that is constantly asking you to commit 2-card combos via its unit pair system. Nearly all the power plays available in the game come off the backs of link plays, where you can restabilize the board and push yourself ahead in a must-answer scenario. So much so that it's incredibly frustrating and often game losing being the player who does not see a link during a game. I have lost dozens of times to a linked Amuro Gramps on curve that I just couldn't respond to. Now, that has to do in part with the fact that that link play specifically is one of the most back-breaking tempo swings in the game, but it remains true for plenty of swingy link plays. Death Scythe, Ale, Kshatriya. Thankfully, Bandai has accounted for that and has given their most combo-demanding game in their TCG repertoire the necessary draw and searchers to allow players to line up their plays. If you couldn't tell by the tone of my voice, the current iteration of the game has a severe lack of card advantage and card quality, with consistency cards being countable on one hand. Not only are players constantly at the mercy of the draw, but an incredibly large portion of the games end up in top deck wars deciding the fate of the match. Now, I did say that this was the most solvable issue, and we're already seeing some release there with GDO2. Cards like Turning Point of History are exactly what the game needs in providing players the ability to actually sculpt their hands to deal with their opponents. Bandai games do get more consistent as new sets release, and I'm hoping this feels bad of praying for the right draws will be alleviated over the next few set releases. That alone would necessitate this conversation, but... The idea behind bursts is that they provide a catch-up mechanic for players falling behind. As you lose shields, you'll hopefully be able to go up on card advantage or have an effect that will impact the board that will hopefully keep you in the game and allow you to swing back the advantage. Unfortunately, this is completely reliant on having said bursts in your life in the first place. Otherwise, it's just a card that goes to trash. This RNG component means that it doesn't stand on its own as a true comeback mechanic. Looking at Bandai's other shield-based games for comparison, in One Piece, the cards always go to hand and may have triggers. In Fusion World, the cards always go to hand. In Digimon, you may get a trigger, or your Digimon and security do battle with the attacker. All of these games implement their shields like a true comeback mechanic. You can outvantage your opponent if they attack recklessly, and you can plan around a baseline comeback. On the flip side, in Gundam, you could be losing, having not gotten any bursts out of shields, lost all your resources restabilizing the board, only to give your opponent multiple free cards via base and pilot bursts as you try to claw your way back from the game. Every base burst is not only a free base deploy, but it also draws them a card, meaning that in any unlucky game, you could be facing your opponent having multiple cards over you for free while you're still losing. All because the comeback mechanic of this game is based around the RNG of the burst keyword. That's not to say that skilled players can't play around this RNG, but there have been far too many games I've played where, based on my opponent's set shields and my own, I had 0 paths to victory. And to tie it all together, it's the fact that... Unlike leader-based games, there is no indication of what your opponent is on in the Gundam card game. This means that you must blind mulligan, hoping that you made the right choice for the matchup that you're going into. How this plays out in reality is that you're forced to mulligan for aggro because it's an auto loss if you face into aggro and keep a slow hand. That may have actually been decent going into a control deck. Due to the nature of hidden deck games, we should be treating the competitive flow of this game more like NTG, Yu-Gi-Oh, or Pokemon than we would with One Piece, Fusion World, or even say Flesh and Blood. Especially when you consider the advantage that competitive teams have at scatting the room room for bigger tournaments. For the uninitiated, scouting is when you take note of what decks people are playing in the earlier rounds of a tournament to have an edge if you pair up with them later down the line. Taken to its competitive extreme, this often involves teams of players filling up an entire spreadsheet of who's on what, naturally giving them the edge on mulligans and game planning going into their future rounds. In leader-based games, this is mostly a moot point. It's only really ever done for like tech cards, but in a hidden deck game, it's a massive advantage. Best of 3 solves this pain point by allowing both players the opportunity to go into a game 2 and potentially game 3 more informed and capable of making mulligan and gameplay decisions earlier on that lead to a more determinative result. And the determinative result is really what I'm after. I want as many matches of the Gundam card game to be decided by impactful, intentional play by both players. However, due to the way the game is designed and the available card pool, instead of games ending in a bang, they often peter out in a one-sided roll. By implementing best of 3, we normalize the chances for RNG to be the deciding factor.
Espira, best of 3 would take too long. Tournaments would never end.
While I understand the concern, and trust me, I've been part of the organizer side of things far too often to not get it, based on the small sample data we can see from CardFest, we see that players can absolutely get 3 games of Gundam in within a reasonable amount of time. Sure, the odd control mirror will probably go to time, but that's true of any card game. MTG, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! All manage double-digit rounds of best of 3 gameplay. I'm confident that Gundam's ability to do so in typical 8 to 9 rounds would be fine. And for what it's worth, I am mostly petitioning for this at the competitive level. While I personally don't get it, I know a lot of players like their locals being like sub 2 hours, and I think any locals that still want to run best of 1 tournaments because that's what their community wants, then by all means. I would just like the option to choose the way to play that gives the most opportunity for determinative gameplay. Oh, also, I know Bandai is allergic to them, but sideboards would be so sick. And as always, thank you to these fantastic patrons for supporting the channel.